A guy goes to prison, gets to his cell, and sees that his cellmate is a hulking dude twice his size. The cellmate stares at him and says, "Okay, you want to be the husband or the wife?" The guy nervously says, "I guess I'll be the husband." Cellmate says, "Great, get over here and suck your wife's d." A lawyer is sitting beside a blonde on a flight to New York and decides to show off by playing a game with someone he assumes is a dumb blonde. He offers her irresistible 10-to-1 odds. For every question she can't answer, she owes him a measly $5. But for every question he can't answer, he'll give her $50 cash. After a little thought, she agrees and the game begins. The lawyer asks the first question. "Can you tell me the distance between the Earth and the nearest star?" The blonde thinks for a moment, then quietly hands him a $5 note. Then it's her turn. "Tell me what it is that goes up a hill with 3 legs and comes down the hill with 4. The lawyer is stumped. He spends 20 minutes Googling and making calls, but can't find the answer anywhere. Frustrated, he concedes and gives up and hands her $50 in cash. With a sweet smile, she tucks the money into her purse, and the lawyer asks, "So, okay, you got my money. What's the answer?" The blonde smiled sweetly and handed him $5. A new monk arrives at the monastery. He is assigned the task of helping the other monks in copying the old texts by hand. He notices, however, that they are copying copies and not the original books. So the new monk goes to the head monk to ask him about this. He points out that if there was an error in the first copy, that error would be continued in all of the other copies. The head monk says, "We have been copying from the copies for centuries, but you make a good point, my son." So he goes down into the cellar with one of the copies to check it against the original. Hours later, nobody has seen him. So one of the monks goes downstairs to look for him. He hears sobbing coming from the back of the cellar and finds the old monk leaning over one of the original books, crying. He asks what's wrong. "You f***ers," he says, with anger and sadness in his eyes. "The word was celebrate." The mother-in-law comes home and finds her son-in-law furious and packing his suitcase. "What happened?" asked the mother-in-law. "What happened? I'll tell you what happened. I sent an email to my wife saying that I was coming home from my trip today. I got home and guess what I found? My wife, yes, my Rachel, with a naked guy in our marital bed. This is the end of our marriage. I will leave forever." "Calm down," says the mother-in-law. "There is something odd about this story. Rachel would never do such a thing. Wait a minute while I check what happened." Moments later, the mother-in-law comes back with a big smile. "You see, I said there must be a simple explanation. Rachel didn't receive your email." One day, a little girl sat in the kitchen watching her mother wash dishes at the sink. She suddenly noticed a few white strands standing out against her mom's brunette hair. Curious, she asked, "Mom, why are some of your hairs white?" Her mother smiled and replied, "Well, sweetheart, every time you do something wrong and make me sad or unhappy, one of my hairs turns white." The little girl thought about this very carefully. Then she looked up and asked innocently, "Mama, then why are all of Grandma's hairs white?" Morris, an 82-year-old man, went to the doctor to get a physical. A few days later, the doctor saw Morris walking down the street with a gorgeous young woman on his arm. A couple of days later, the doctor spoke to Morris and said, "You're really doing great, aren't you?" Morris replied, "Just doing what you said, Doc. Get a hot mama and be cheerful." The doctor said, "I didn't say that. I said, you've got a heart murmur. Be careful." For their 40th wedding anniversary, the old biker's wife said, "Maybe we should do something romantic, like a cruise?" He scratched his beard, fought for a second, and said, "Sweetheart, every time I ride my Harley, the wind in my face is a cruise, except it doesn't come with karaoke and screaming kids." She rolled her eyes. "Fine then, what about a nice dinner?" He smirked. "Already planned it. Me, the Harley, and a drive-through burger joint. Nothing says romance like 2-for-1 fries." She crossed her arms. "So after 40 years, your big gesture is greasy food and your motorcycle?" He grinned. "Not just greasy food delivered by 80 horsepower of love." She sighed, but later that night when he pulled up with her fries balanced carefully on the tank, she couldn't help but laugh. "40 years," she said, shaking her head. "And you still love that Harley more than me." He winked. "Wrong. I love you both the same, but only one of you lets me ride without backseat driving."
Why English is hard to learn. We'll begin with box. The plural is boxes, but the plural of ox is oxen, not oxes. One fowl is a goose, and two are called geese, yet the plural of moose is never called meese. You may find a lone mouse, or a house full of mice, but the plural of house is houses, not heis. The plural of man is always men, but the plural of pan is never pen. If I speak of a foot, and you show me 2 feet, and I give you a book, would a pair be a beak? If one is a tooth, and a whole set are teeth, why shouldn't 2 booths be called beath? If the singular's this, and the plural is these, should the plural of kiss be ever called keese? We speak of a brother, and also of brethren, but though we say mother, we never say methrin. Then the masculine pronouns are he, his, and him, but imagine the feminine, she, shis, and shim.
A guy storms into a bar looking like he just saw his soul leave his body. "Bourbon, neat." He slams it back like it owes him money. He leans over the bar and asks, "Hey, how big is a penguin?" Bartender squints. A 1.5 foot, maybe?" The guy nods, mutters, "Oh, shoot," and orders 2 more bourbons. Down the hatch. Then he asks, voice shaking, "What's the absolute biggest a penguin can get?" Bartender pauses. 3 feet? Maybe a little more if it's been hitting the gym?" The guy goes pale, orders another double, drinks it like water. He exhales and says, "Well, that's f***ed." Bartender leans in. "Why?" The guy whispers, "Because 5 minutes ago on the highway, I thought I clipped a speed bump. Beat. And now I'm realizing it was either a nun or the most aggressive penguin God ever created."
Once there was this young man who discovered a treasure trove. Amongst the old and valuable things, he noticed a worn-out lamp. He rubbed the lamp, and out came a genie. "Yes, master, express your wish," the genie howled. The man said, "Genie, get me a grand mansion where I can live happily ever after with my girlfriend." The genie looked at the man and said, "Well, if I could make a mansion like that, then why do you suppose I live in this stuffy, worn-out lamp?"
My wife went on a holiday, leaving me behind. I got horny one day and decided to try the maid who has just arrived from the village. I called the maid to my bedroom, where I had taken off my clothes, and pointed to my manhood. "Do you know what this is?" I said. The maid, acting shy, "Yes." "Do you know what is used for?" "Yes." "Well, that's perfect. Show me." The maid immediately knelt down, held the item with both hands, drew closer, and opens her mouth. At this point, I was shivering with anticipation and excitement. The maid then began, "My name is Sarah. I'm 22 years old from Emo State. I want to send a shout out to my parents, Mr. and Mrs. Bamadele, my uncle Dio, my brother Andrew Bamadele. I would like to tell my boyfriend that I miss him. Can you please play a song, Work, Work, Work by Rihanna? Thank you. She then turned to me and said, Boss, take your microphone. I'm done. I fainted. A Midwest farmer was describing his lifestyle to a touring group of city folks. One of the benefits of this profession, he explained, is that we have built-in weather predictions. What do you mean by that? Asked one inquisitive visitor. When the cows are standing, the farmer explained, it means no rain is likely for the next 24 hours. When they're lying down, it means it's going to rain. On our bus trip, another visitor piped in, I saw half the herd standing and the other half lying down. What does that mean? The farmer flashed a smile and answered, that means half of them are wrong. 3 women were chatting about their love lives. The first one said, my husband is like a Rolls-Royce, smooth, luxurious, and oh so sophisticated. The second one smirked. Well, mine is like a Porsche, fast, powerful, and always ready to go. The third woman sighed. Lucky you, mine's more like an old Chevy, needs a hand crank to get started, and I have to jump on while it's still moving. A woman was walking on the beach when she came across a genie lamp. She picked up the lamp, rubbed it, and lo and behold, a genie appeared. Surprised, the woman soon came to her senses and asked if she had 3 wishes. The genie replied, no. Due to inflation, constant downsizing, and fierce global competition, I can only grant you 1 wish. So what will you wish for? The woman did not hesitate. She took out a map and said, I wish for peace in the Middle East. You see this map? I want these countries to stop fighting each other. The genie looked at the map and exclaimed, my goodness, ma'am, these people have been fighting for thousands of years. I am good, but not that good. This is not possible. Make another wish. The woman thought for a moment and said, well, I've never found the right man. You know, someone who's thoughtful and funny, who likes to cook and help clean the house, who's good in bed and gets along with my family, who doesn't watch sports all the time, and who's faithful. That's what I want, a good wife. The genie let out a long sigh, shook his head, and said, let me see that card again. 2 men were walking home after a party and decided to take a shortcut through the cemetery just for laughs. Right in the middle of the cemetery, they were startled by a tap-tap-tapping noise coming from the misty shadows. Trembling with fear, they found an old man with a hammer and chisel chipping away at one of the headstones. Oh, mister, one of them said after catching his breath, you scared us half to death. We thought you were a ghost. What are you doing working here so late at night? Those fools, the old man grumbled. They misspelled my name. 2 exhausted priests decided they needed a vacation somewhere far from ringing phones and church bells. So they picked Hawaii, swearing to each other that this trip would be total undercover mode. No collars, no black clothes, nothing that even hinted at their real jobs. As soon as they landed, they raided a souvenir shop like 2 kids on summer break. They walked out dressed in the loudest tourist gear imaginable. Neon shirts, floral shorts, flip-flops, giant sunglasses, and straw hats so big they could pick up satellite signals. The next morning, feeling delightfully anonymous, they strutted down the beach with fruity drinks in hand. Life was good. Then a stunning blonde in a tiny bikini walked by, flashed a smile, and cheerfully said, "Morning, Father. Morning, Father." She nodded politely to each of them and continued on her way. The priests froze. How in the world? Determined not to be recognized, they upgraded their disguises the following day. Louder colors, crazier patterns, socks with sandals, hats with dangling beads. They looked like walking yard sales. Confident they were now completely unidentifiable, they returned to the beach. And right on schedule, the same blonde strolled by, less fabric than before. She stopped, grinned, and said, "Morning, Father, morning, Father." One priest nearly spilled his drink. "All right, we surrender. Yes, we're priests. But how did you know?" The blonde giggled, leaned closer, and whispered, "Oh, please, Father, it's me, Sister Angela." A little boy named Tommy went to church with his grandma every Sunday. One day, Grandma told him it was time to make his first confession. She explained, "You go into that little booth, tell the priest your sins, and he'll forgive you." Tommy was nervous, but agreed. He walked into the confessional, sat down, and the priest slid open the little window. "Bless me, Father, for I have sinned," Tommy whispered. The priest smiled kindly. "Go ahead, my son. What are your sins?" Tommy took a deep breath. "Well, I stole a pencil from school, I said a bad word, and I lied to my mom." The priest nodded. "That's not too bad. Anything else?" Tommy thought hard. Oh yeah, I threw my sister's Barbie out the window and told her she ran away." The priest chuckled. "Anything else?" Tommy scratched his head. "Oh, and last night I put toothpaste on Grandpa's dentures while he was sleeping." The priest tried not to laugh. "All right, my son, say 3 Hail Marys and try to be a better boy." Tommy nodded, feeling proud. When he walked out of the booth, Grandma smiled and asked, "How did it go?" Tommy grinned widely. "Piece of cake, Grandma, but I don't think that guy behind the screen knows half the stuff I've done." While still lying in bed, the wife turned to her husband and said, "Maybe you shouldn't go to work today." "What do you mean? Why shouldn't I go to work today?" replied the confused husband. "I think you've been working too hard, so maybe instead of going to the office, you should take a few days off, pack a suitcase, and go stay with a friend for a few days away from home to straighten yourself out." The husband thought for a moment and decided to jump at the suggestion before it was forgotten. Within moments, he was up, dressed, and started packing clothes into a bag. "Just out of curiosity," the husband asked while getting ready, "how did you come to the conclusion that I've been working so hard that I need a break?" The wife answered, "Because every 2 minutes you were telling your secretary to go faster." "Really? How do you know I was having dreams about work?" he asked. "Because every 2 minutes you were telling your secretary to go faster." A guy goes to a therapist and says, "Doc, I think my marriage is falling apart." The therapist asks why. The guy sighs. "My wife and I don't talk anymore. We don't connect. We barely even fight." The therapist nods. "When was the last time you were intimate?" The guy thinks. Emotionally or legally? The therapist squints. "Legally?" The guy shrugs. "Yeah, emotionally it's been years. Legally, last Tuesday, but only because she needed help reaching the top shelf." The therapist says you need to spice things up, compliment her, make her feel wanted. So the guy goes home, walks up to his wife, and says, "Hey, you still turn me on." She looks at him like he just farted in church. He adds, "I mean, sometimes." She crosses her arms. "Sometimes?" He panics. "Okay, fine. Every time you leave the room." She stares. "Why then?" He replies, "Because the silence is sexy as hell." She didn't speak to him for 3 days. Honestly, best 3 days of his marriage. A pissed-off wife was complaining about her husband spending all his free time in a bar, so one night he took her along with him. "What'll you have?" he asked. "Oh, I don't know, the same as you, I suppose," she replied. So the husband ordered beer and threw his down in one shot. His wife watched him, then took a sip from her glass and immediately spat it out. "Yucca, that's terrible," she spluttered. "I don't know how you can drink this stuff."
"Well, there you go," cried the husband, "and you think I'm out enjoying myself every night." Two women were playing a relaxed round of golf when one of them teed off and gasped in horror as the ball flew straight toward a group of men on the next hole. Smack! It hit one of the men directly in the, well, you can guess. He dropped to the ground, hands tightly clasped between his legs, groaning in pain. The woman ran over, clearly shaken. "I'm so sorry," she cried. "I'm a physical therapist. I can help you. It's what I do." The man, curled up in a ball, muttered, No, I'll be okay. Just give me a second." But she insisted. Finally, he nodded. She gently moved his hands aside, helped him sit up, and began to apply a careful, professional massage through his clothing. After a few minutes, she asked, "Is that feeling any better?" He looked at her and said, "Honestly, that part feels amazing, but my thumb still really hurts."
An elderly couple walk into a luxury car dealership to buy their dream ride. Top model, leather everywhere, price tag that hurts just looking at it. The salesman smirks and says, "Sorry, folks, that car was just sold." The old man squints. "Funny, you told us this morning the price was non-negotiable." The salesman shrugs. "Yeah, but then she showed up." He points to a stunning young woman signing papers at the desk. "She got a special deal," he adds. "Some offers are flexible." The old woman narrows her eyes but stays quiet. A few minutes later, the young woman walks over, jingling the keys, and hands them to the elderly couple. "Here you go," she says sweetly. The salesman freezes. "Wait, what the hell is this?" The girl smiles. "I told them I'd handle it." Then she leans in and whispers just loud enough for him to hear, "Next time, don't underestimate a woman who learned negotiation from stripping and business school." She turns to the old man. "Enjoy the car, Grandpa." As she walks out, the old woman pats the salesman's arm and says, "Don't feel bad, son. You just got without even getting dessert." An elderly couple was celebrating their 60th anniversary. The couple had married as childhood sweethearts and had moved back to their old neighborhood after they retired. Holding hands, they walked back to their old school. It was not locked, so they entered and found the old desk they'd shared, where Jerry had carved, "I love you, Sally." On their way back home, a bag of money fell out of an armored car, practically landing at their feet. Sally quickly picked it up and, not sure what to do with it, they took it home. There, she counted the money. $50,000. Jerry said, "We've got to give it back." Sally said, "Finders keepers." She put the money back in the bag and hid it in their attic. The next day, 2 police officers were canvassing the neighborhood looking for the money and knocked on their door. "Pardon me, did either of you find a bag that fell out of an armored car yesterday?" Sally said, "No." Jerry said, "She's lying. She hid it up in the attic." Sally said, "Don't believe him. He's getting senile." The agents turned to Jerry and began to question him. One said, "Tell us the story from the beginning." Jerry said, "Well, when Sally and I were walking home from school yesterday." The first police officer turned to his partner and said, "We're out of here."